Changing international COVID testing rules, lax governmental regulation, and rapidly developing technologies have created confusion when it comes to PCR testing, the most accurate type of COVID test often required for work or travel.
I-Team investigator Adam Walser uncovered a local medical clinic advertising a COVID testing service that appears simply too good to be true.
Enjoy it while you can.
Paul Gelsleichter was leaving for a trip of a lifetime, a river cruise in Europe, when he got bad news at Tampa International Airport.
I went to the ticket counter and was told by the agent that my test had expired.
In a panic, he took an Uber to Remedies Health and Wellness, a small Safety Harbor clinic recommended by an airline employee. The sign out front advertised rapid PCR test. Results in 15 minutes.
Was there anything unusual about the clinic?
It was a medical clinic and there was a dog there.
The dog belongs to licensed nurse practitioner Tracy Green, who owns the business.
I told her I came over from the airport. She said, "Oh, we'll get you right in and out so you don't miss your flight."
Paul says Green swabbed his nose and took the sample to another room while he filled out paperwork.
She was not wearing a mask or gloves.
Did that surprise you?
It sure did. 5-7 minutes later, she said, "Let me check it." So she went back there and she said, "Oh, it's fine, you're fine." She said, the positives show right away. He said, the negatives, take a while.
And this is supposed to be a PCR test.
PCR test, all right.
She gave him a travel certificate and a note on a prescription pad saying he tested negative on a PCR test and was safe for travel.
We were on our way and the driver said, "Oh, you were in there only 11 minutes.
A Canadian citizen we contacted had a similar experience. In this email, she said she took 3 rapid PCR tests at the clinic and all took 15 minutes as promised.
So you take that and you're going to put it in some kind of buffer.
University of Tampa biochemistry professor Dr. Scott Witherow says PCR tests are too complicated to get results that quickly.
The genetic material in the virus is amplified, and each cycle that genetic material doubles. So you can start with 1 copy of that, and then through about 30 cycles, you have 1 billion copies of that.
The manual for the fastest PCR test on the market says samples are collected, labeled, and placed in a chemical agent. Then the solution is introduced onto a cassette, which is placed in a machine that performs dozens of uninterrupted cycles.
If someone were to offer me a 15-minute rapid PCR test, is that a possibility?
To do those amplification steps and then still get a result to your patient, I just don't see how that's possible.
It's all computerized.
Steve Weiner owns a company that offers expedited PCR test results in 45 to 90 minutes. He charges up to $199 for his fastest PCR test.
PCR is state of the art. PCR is 99% effective. It's a much more comprehensive, complicated process.
And according to Witherow, can detect COVID days earlier than rapid tests.
The rapid test might not pick it up, whereas the PCR test would.
And that's why you don't necessarily want people going on an airplane to a foreign country with just the antigen.
Right.
I went to Remedies to check for myself how fast I could get results from a PCR test, paying $125. Green showed up without a mask or gloves, quickly swabbed my nostrils, and didn't ask for an ID.
I would think that any kind of licensed nurse or practitioner would have what we call PPE, the personal protective equipment, a mask, gloves, at a minimum.
I have not seen a testing site anywhere that I've been where the testers were not wearing gloves and masks.
USF Healthcare Vice President Jay Wolfson is a doctor of public health and an attorney.
If they never asked to see my ID, does that matter?
Yeah, they got to know who they're testing and they've got to verify that you're you.
Because I could go take that test for somebody else.
Yeah.
Less than 2 minutes after swabbing my nose, Green returned to collect my form, carrying the small dog Paul Matt, who she introduced as Johnny Cash.
You should sign for it as well, by the way.
I should have signed some kind of document.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't sign anything. I started a timer after Green collected my paperwork. 27 minutes later, she called to say my COVID test was negative.
27 minutes, none of the devices or instruments or protocols or techniques that I've seen have been able to do that using PCR.
So when you're talking 27 minutes, that's after you've already collected the sample, taken it to the machine, put it inside. And
So now you're looking about 35 minutes.
so 27 minutes in a
There's
small
no-
clinic
yeah.
would be doubtful to you.
Right.
I received a certificate with the wrong date of birth saying my PCR test was negative. I had some questions for Green.
We're just curious about the PCR test. Everyone has told us that it's pretty hard to do one in less than a half hour.
Well, it's not, because I have a lab. I bought
Okay.
the equipment and I have a lab in there. I don't have to send it out.
Can we see the lab?
No, you can't. There's HIPAA information in there.
HIPAA prevents them from sharing your personal health information with other people and to making your files available. It doesn't have anything to do with them showing you the machine.
We also asked her about the claim on her sign.
It says 15-minute rapid PCR test. And
Well, there
there's
should be a
none.
comma. There should be a comma in there on the sign.
Why is there not a comma?
I
It's
can go out there
unclear.
with a Sharpie and put a comma in between PCR and rapid, because there's two tests.
Okay.
Yeah, if that makes you guys feel better.
When we returned the next day, the word "and" was written between rapid and PCR.
People who were positive could have gotten on a flight and flown and maybe infected other people.
Paul Gelsleichter, who is 80, counts himself lucky that he really was negative for COVID-19.
This could have been a disaster had I been positive.
After we spoke with Green that day, she moved out of this location. Records from the CDC indicate that Green received permission to conduct PCR tests at Remedies, but a State Department of Health spokesperson says that the state has no records indicating that she reported any COVID testing results to the state. I'm My Team investigator Adam Walser, taking action for you.